Hey everyone, Terry here, and I have a differential clunking noise. Let's dig into that. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today I'm going to be undertaking the project of replacing that rear diff bushing mount. So it's going to be a little tricky to get to it, but it shouldn't be too bad overall as long as I don't run into any clearance issues. Now everybody's going to have a different situation that's going to occur when you do this project. There's different differential designs for the different Z3 models, so yours might be slightly, you might have to work with some other circumstances than what I have. Now for me, I have the 2.5 manual Z3. So if you have a 2.8 or a 3 liter or an M model, your stuff is going to be different, as well as if you have a 1.9, your stuff is going to be different. So just know that that they use different differentials depending on the model of the Z3 that you have. So there might be some things you might need to work with that I might not address on mine. Just keep that in mind. Now, I am already aware, before someone starts shouting at me about my choice of going with a poly bushing, I am fully aware of the subframe issue that comes with the Z3s and the welds breaking and having to do the reinforcement. I know, okay? You don't need to yell at me in the comments about how I need to do this. I am fully aware of it, and it's just not within my means to take care of that. There's a lot of controversy on this topic, and I feel like this issue tends to happen more to the Z3 owners that have a 2.8, a 3 liter, or like the any of the M models. That subframe issue seems to happen to them the most, just because they have the highest torque output when it comes to the Z3 altogether. So I have a 2.5. Yes, there's still a chance it could happen to me, but it's a lot lower of a chance compared to someone with a 3 liter. So, and again, I don't drive this car aggressively, so that's going to come into play too. I don't drive it aggressively. It's just, the occasional commute, little daily driver that I have, where I'm putting maybe 60 miles on it a week just to go to work, and I'm not doing any heavy acceleration and gear shifting and being aggressive with it at all. So I feel like if I go with a poly bushing, I should be okay, because I pretty much drive like a grandma. All right, so I'm not as worried about it. Now, if you're someone who likes to have a lot more fun with the car and drive more aggressively, then definitely be advised that you really should reinforce that subframe. Randy Forbes is well known for his kit that he designed for the car, so you can go ahead and invest in that, as well as there are other options for reinforcement that you can go with. If you have a really good body shop that's well experienced with how to work with structural stuff for cars, they might even be able to put something together for you as well, if you don't want to go and purchase the Randy Forbes kit. So there's different methods out there that you could go with. Now, I'm not going to do any of them right now because it's not in my budget. And I'm gonna put this poly bushing in there, and that's gonna be that. It's gonna be done. No yelling at me in the comments, because I already know that there is a chance that I might run into the subframe issue still. I know, I know. All right, but it's just, I gotta do what I can do when I can do it. So let's go ahead and get this bushing replaced. Now, I'm hoping I won't run into too many issues with having to disassemble things. Now, in theory, you're supposed to be able to just remove the bolts for the mount and lower the diff enough to clearance the bracket. I attempted this on like 2 or 3 other occasions while I was messing around with repairing the CV joint, and I couldn't get the clearance. I think my parking brake cable might be what's holding me up, so I'm going to double check that to make sure that's not getting strained and preventing the subframe from coming down. Another option we could do, if in the event I still don't have the clearance to get that bushing from below the bracket, is I could remove the lower bolt from the shock, and that should bring the subframe down a little bit more too. I'm hoping I don't have to do that. I don't want to have to do that, but if it comes to that, it comes to that. I'm hoping just adjusting my brake cables a little bit will give me the clearance that I need. So let's get under the car and get this going. Okay, so now we are underneath the car. I have it on jack stands. The diff is already being supported by my jack, so I can start working on removing this bolt right here. Now, once again, I think from previous attempts that I think this is the parking brake line right here. I think this is what might be holding me up. I've noticed that it's slowly pulling from the clip back there, which the only way it could be getting pulled out of that clip is if it's being pulled by the subframe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop it out of that clip just to give it some added slack. I'm then going to remove this bolt. I believe it was a 19 millimeter, and there is a nut and washer on the back. So we're going to take that out, and then we're going to see how much this will lower on its own, and hopefully I can clear this bracket here. I could easily get this bushing out even if it's still partially in the way. That's not my concern. My concern is being able to get the new one in. I'm worried that if I have too much of this still overlapping on top, that I won't be able to slip the replacement bushing in. So that's why I'm trying to make sure I get this pulled as far down as I can to where I'm not going to make contact with this bracket. So let's just pop that out, and see what we got. Now I don't want to have to remove this. I've recently replaced this and torqued it down, and 2 of these bolts are close to stripping. So removing it isn't an option because I can't put them back in. I would have to buy new bolts. So I'm hoping I can do this without removing the axle from the diff, and let's see what happens. I can do it by hand. There we go. That's out of that clip. All right, hopefully that way that isn't becoming too tight. That'll give it a little more flex. Let's get this bolt removed. All right, so I'm going to use my impact and a wrench to remove this. Again, there's a nut and washer on the back. If you put a wrench on there, the wrench will eventually hit the sway bar and that'll hold it in place. All right, so you should have the nut and washer on the back, as well as there's going to be a washer on the front for the bolt here as well. So basically the bolt, 2 washers, and a locking nut. Let's see how much this thing will come down. Slowly lower. It's coming down. And it's hold up on something. Let me put the jack back in tight mode to support it. So it stopped coming down. And as you can see, I don't have full clearance from the bracket. So now I gotta see what's holding me up on that brake wire anymore. So that's not my issue. All right, so I wasn't able to lower this enough. I raised it back up. I'm thinking I can either disconnect the end link just in case the sway bar is holding it up. I could try that. I feel like I might feel more comfortable doing the sway bar first before I mess with taking the wheel and disconnecting the shock. But I guess I'll try that. I need to replace these end links though. The end link bushings on here are shot. So this is another to-do list that I got. And I can replace these at any time. I'm focusing on this bushing first, and then I'll have to do these end links. And these other bushings here too. It would be best to do it while the exhaust is out, that's for sure. So this will probably might be something I'll do before my work with the drive shaft, maybe. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Before I get the exhaust put back in, I'll make a determining decision on doing this. Let me see. So I'm gonna need to probably pull the brake line out of this clip. And then I just need to undo this bolt here, and then this will pop right out of that bracket. I'm not gonna touch this one because that looks like a locking nut, and if I undo that lock nut, then I'll have to replace that lock nut. So I don't want to do that. So I think it'll be easier just to take this bolt out and sliding that out, and that way the sway bar won't be holding this up. But I don't see how this, I don't know. Like, I feel like that would be holding the trailing arm up, not really the diff. But I don't know. I am guessing at this point on what I need to unhook to get this to drop enough. So guess we'll try end link first. If it still isn't coming down, then I'll remove the tire and this bolt on the shock, and we'll see if that does it. Okay, so I discovered it's a 13 millimeter. So I gotta, I went ahead and I disconnected the brake line from the clamp right there. I don't know how tight these are. Oh, they're not that bad at all. Okay. Not tight at all. I didn't know if I needed my breaker bar or not. And turns out you don't need a breaker bar on these. They're not that tight. Or at least mine wasn't that tight. I wonder if I should take the tire off first. That might be a lot of weight. Let me stop. Let me take the tire off. I want to at least get some of that weight off of it. Now, what size do I need for these? 17. All right, so I am up against the wall. I'll have to catch the tire because Euro cars don't have studs. All right, I got my leg under the tire. Keep it from just falling here. There we go. Caught it on my leg. All right, tire is, oh, ouch, tire is off. Okay, that gets rid of that extra weight. Just so I don't lose these, I'm gonna put them in back into the rotor, so I don't kick them around. Now, you'll see that I do need to do a brake job. I need to do a brake job. I am well aware. This is another thing on my list of things to do this year. There, now we'll have that extra weight off, so when I disconnect that sway bar, that's not all that weight isn't just going on the trailing arm there. All right, now let's go ahead and disconnect the other stuff. Okay, Okay. Okay, well, anyways, that's no longer connected. So the sway bar won't be holding it up. The brake line won't be holding it up. So my next plan is to lower the subframe a bit. So underneath the car here, the subframe is attached right here. And then right here. Let me get out from under the car. So I proceeded to remove my other wheel because the subframe connects right here. So if this is your wheel well, this is where your jack mount is. Right back here is where the subframe is bolted in with the subframe bushing, right back in here. So now that both wheels are removed, I'm going to need to remove the liner as well. And this has an 8mm bolt holding it in, and it looks like it's just two. I got one right there and then one up there. Nothing holding it on this side. Looking to see if it's bolted in the back or underneath. So there is a bolt underneath right here that we'll have to get. And then one right here underneath there we'll have to get. And then we can slip out the wheel liner here, the fender liner. Just be careful when you're pulling it from up here that you don't dent, or this is real thin aluminum right here. This will definitely bend. So when you're pulling this out, just be careful not to damage your fender right here. So let's go ahead and take the liner out on both sides, and then we'll go from there. Oh, and I also disconnected the end link on this side. So both end links are disconnected. And but now we're going to get rid of the liner here so we can lower the subframe an inch or two if possible. So that way then I'll be able to get clearance on that bracket, hopefully. Got that. And then we go and get the one down under this side. Okay. Sorry, a little metal bracket. I heard it hit the ground. Oh, there it is. I guess there's a little metal bracket under there too, a little clip piece. All right. So. Ooh, that is tight. Okay, seems like I can start on this side a lot easier than the other side. All right, got a plastic trim tool. Let's see how this works. There we go. Just had to get the trim tool in there. That worked out great. All right, now I just gotta get the other side here. There we go. And now that is out of the way. I'll have to take off the other one as well. But now, once that liner is removed, we're able to see the subframe bushing right there. So this here is where the subframe gets mounted to the chassis. So I'll have to remove the lower bracket, and I got my jack stands in place, so as it comes down it'll rest on that and not just fall out. So before I even tackle this, let me go ahead and remove the liner on the other side, and then I'll be back. So we got to get these brackets off where the subframe bushing is, and you're going to need a hex bit to do that. So I got, what is it, I think a 6. Let me look at my socket here. Yeah, 6. You're going to need an H6 socket, hex bit. There's going to be 2 fasteners on each bracket, on each side there. I do have my jack is still underneath the diff, so that way once those brackets come off, I'm hoping it'll start to lower the subframe. So here's where the bushing is and where the subframe connects to the actual chassis of the car. Once I take this lower bracket off, I'm hoping it'll just come down. There is a bolt that goes straight through that bushing, and it has a nut in the middle of the bolt that tightens it into the chassis there. I'm hoping I don't need to touch the bolt. I'm hoping it'll just kind of come down, and that'll suffice. Otherwise, I might have to loosen the bolt here. I don't know what size that is. I'll have to get my digital caliper to actually measure it. But otherwise, I mean, if you have an adjustable wrench, you could always use that. But if I get to the point where I have to mess with that bolt, I'll measure it, so that way if you guys don't have an adjustable wrench, you'll know exactly what size you'll need. So let's go ahead and take this bracket off. Now, once again, some of you would have a nut on the bottom right here. I think it would be like a 22 millimeter nut. My car has a modification for some skid plating that goes there instead, so I don't have that particular fastener on mine, but keep in mind that you would. So right inside here is where our 2 other fasteners are that we got to get to drop this bracket, and those are the ones you need that hex bit for. So I got a breaker bar because I don't know how tight these are to loosen them. I already hit them with some penetrant to make it easy to break them loose. So let's go ahead and see how tight these are and remove those brackets. And I got some additional jack stands, and these ones are to catch the subframe as I lower it, because I don't want to fully lower it. I just want to lower it about maybe 1 to 2 inches and hope that that'll give me enough clearance. I don't want to put a lot of tension on the brake lines and things, and the wheel sensor or the speed sensor, or not the speed sensor, the wheel sensor and whatever else. So I'm hoping if I just lower it that little bit, it won't damage anything. So let's find out. Okay, those aren't too tight, so that's good. Let's get the other one. Okay, so those are broken loose. Now let me use my electric ratchet to just zip those out. You guys can't see it, but there's a drain hose right there that my thing is hitting. And again, make sure you have plenty of things to support, because this thing might come down and you do not want it falling down on you. Like right now it just kind of dropped down and now I can't even get my socket in there anymore. So let me lift up with the jack a bit more. There we go. Okay, that bracket is now removed. Subframe dropped a tiny bit, but not much. All right, now I gotta go get the one on the opposite side. Now there really is like nothing really supporting the subframe at this point. So let's get out from underneath it and kind of get a better look. All right, so you can see the subframe dropped a good amount on this side, and it's almost resting on my jack stand. It's not actually on the jack stand just yet, but that's about how much it dropped down, so that's a good amount. That might hopefully give me the clearance that I'm looking for. So we achieved that, and because you can see these bushings do have cracks, pretty deep cracks, so they do need to be replaced. So that is something that I do intend to do. So that's coming. I got to get these other repairs done. I got enough parts to change, and then once I get a little bit more funding, I'll buy the bushings for this and do that too. The R tabs technically should also be done, but it's not really something on my list at this very moment. I got to do this in baby steps, so a little at a time, and then we'll keep working it. But once you do these bushings here, you really should do these ones here on your trailing arms here. All right, let's go see how the other side looks. See, I don't think that one dropped as much as this one did. All right, now we're on the opposite side, and this one dropped a little bit. Not as much as the driver's side did, but it still dropped down a little bit, so that's good. Did it make contact with... Okay, it did not make contact with the jack stand, so I can still lower this a little bit more if needed. All right, so I put the bolt back in just to support the diff so I can move my jack. My jack is now on the wheel hub. I'm going to remove the bolt for the shock so I can slowly lower the trailing arm down and get some of that stress off of that side. All right, let me slowly lower the trailing arm on this side. Looks like I got room. I can get another block under there just in case here. There we go. And take this bolt back out and see how much this will lower. I did make an adjustment on the rear subframe. I moved my jack to the back, raised up on the subframe a little so I could adjust my jack stands. I put my jack stands down in one additional notch just to see if that helps. But let me go ahead and get my jack back in place on the diff, and we'll see what happens. Okay, jack is back in position. Bolt for the mount has been removed once again. Let's slowly lower this down and see where we get. There we go. Victory! We got it! Oh my gosh! That's what I needed. Oh, praise it be! Okay. We now have full access to this bushing. So yeah, I had to definitely get the trailing arm to come down a bit to get that. So there we go. So lowered the rear subframe a bit and had to lower the trailing arm by disconnecting the lower bolt on the shock. Only on the left side. I didn't have to mess with that one. I put stuff there just in case I'd have to take that one out. But I did not mess with that one. That one we can leave alone. So it was just lowering the subframe like about maybe 2 inches and then letting go over here So you don't have to disconnect your axles or anything like that. So that's all we had to do. All right, now that we got that figured out, now we can go ahead and cut out that old bushing so we can get the new one put in. A saw might actually be easier to cut this with because my blade just keeps sliding in and out and it won't stay locked on this adjustable blade. Alright, so just a quick update on my progress so far. My knife was not able to cut the rubber. This is just a cheap knife from Harbor Freight, and the blade would just keep going in and out, and it wasn't really doing any good. So I switched over to my rotary tool and used my Dremel, and I started cutting on each side here on the rubber, and went as deep as I could go before I couldn't go any further with the Dremel. And I got it to the point where I'm almost through. So if I put my pry bar in here, I can start to twist it out a little bit. It's still not quite ready. So my next step is I went over to Ace and I bought myself a little handsaw. And I'm going to use this to get in there to finish cutting through the rubber. And then I got a different blade for it that can cut metal real good. So once I get the rubber out, I can still use this to cut this metal ring to get that out in the event the Dremel don't fit in there. But I'm going to go ahead and use this and see if I can't cut through the remaining distance on this rubber so I can't get that middle section out. I guess technically, now that I have the handsaw, because I didn't own one, I had to go buy one, I wouldn't need to remove the rubber part. I could just cut the metal ring and just pop the whole thing out as is. So this is an option. I could just start cutting through here, I guess, and skip that other part. Gotta get the metal ring to break. Be faster probably doing it this way than getting that rubber out. So this is a 24 tooth blade. An 18 would work better for the metal part, but it's working, it's cutting. All right, and then I'll probably start cutting it over here so I can bust this little section out, and then once that's broken out, this should be able to get pried out. So I'm gonna just keep cutting, and then I'll give you guys another update. If I can't get this to bust out, then I'll keep working on getting the middle piece out.
3 hours later.
Alright, drilled a bunch of holes, and I was able to finally twist the center out. Whew. And I've cut through the ring in 2 spots, and I'm still not able to break this out. So what I'm going to do is because I can't fit my Dremel inside to just cut across. So what I'm going to do is use it to kind of just cut on an angle to try to cut like a corner of the ring out, which will give me a small section where I can put like my punch to actually grip in, and maybe I can press it out by hammering it out with a punch. But the lip is so small, I'm not getting a grip, so I'm going to cut a corner out so I have an actual area that I can hit with my punch and maybe start pushing it out, and then I can make another corner over here and push, you know, and kind of start pushing it out. And if that's working, I can even cut and do the same thing on the top. So I will have 4 points of just kind of slowly pushing it out. So I'm going to try that. So let me go ahead and get set up to cut those a little corner off right there. All right, so a little bit more progress. So what I did was I took my Dremel and I cut diagonally across this way to make like because I had a cut here, so I went diagonally across so I could make like a triangle. And now I'm just pressing my screwdriver underneath to kind of pop that up. And I'm hoping if I can get enough leverage underneath the ring, the rest of it will come loose, or at least be able to give me more area to kind of punch it out. I have a piece of metal bent up for this ring, so it's going to give me more area to kind of pound on it to manipulate it. So I'm hoping this is going to start coming out soon. At least I got this chunk out, and I can keep doing diagonals and kind of until I get enough of it out to where I can push the rest of it out. So I can keep working it. Let's see, now that I have that bent up, let me hit it with a punch and see if this will slide out. At the very least that's bending, but bullseye! I'm so happy to have that out right now. Okay, so here it is, that metal ring. So you can see how I had to cut like a triangle, and then I used the screwdriver to get up underneath it because I didn't fully cut through because I didn't want to risk cutting into the actual ear. So I only cut enough to where it looked like I was almost going through. And then I took my screwdriver to kind of pry up underneath it, and then with my my blunt punch, I bent it up, and then once it got to the point where it didn't want to bend, it then started to twist the ring out. So there you go. Triangles. That's what you need. Just cut a triangle in it. So yeah, it looks like I hadn't even cut through it. So I had thought that I had originally cut through, and here's my original cut right here where I was cutting, and it looked like I had cut through, but I did not even get through that ring like I thought I did on either side, which would explain why the middle piece wouldn't fall out. So I didn't even get through it, but doing it this other way with the triangle allowed me to actually get through and pry up and push it out. So that was way easier because it's really hard to tell when you're through the metal band. And I was scared that I was going to start cutting into the ear, so I was just really didn't want to keep sawing because I couldn't tell. I also used the screwdriver to kind of push out some of the extra rubber that was here, because there was this big piece of rubber sitting right here like that. So what I did is I took my screwdriver and I just chiseled it underneath until I worked this chunk of rubber off, and then I made my triangle. Heck yeah. So there you go. If you guys are doing this and you don't want to take the diff cover off and you don't have a press and all that kind of stuff, there you go. Make a triangle and then punch this sucker out. Boom. I will say that I spent a total of 5 hours between yesterday. I spent 4 hours yesterday before I got frustrated and quit, and then an hour this morning trying to figure out how to get through. So I probably, if I had cut through that metal band with my initial 2 cuts, it probably would have fell out and it would have been fine. But I never got through. But that triangle worked, so heck yeah. So what I'm going to do now is I got to smooth this out because I want to make sure I don't have any rough edges there from kind of chiseling. And it doesn't feel like I damaged this at all. This feels pretty smooth still. It's only rough on the edge right here where I was trying to get the screwdriver underneath. So I think we're okay there. And let's go ahead and get that new bushing put in. Heck yeah, dude. Okay, so now we can get to the point of installing the new poly bushing, and I went with the black one, the Heritage version. Alright, so we're on the table, we got everything. Also, just to take note, I did buy a replacement bolt and washers and locking nut for this mount. This is the original one. I don't know what I did with the nut that went on it, but I did replace all of that. I did use the new one to kind of, every time I reinserted it, I just did it finger tight. But what I'm going to do just in case, because these lock nuts are one-time use, since I've been kind of playing with the new one, I'm going to also use some blue thread locker just to ensure that the locking nut locks and stays on. Just in case I did damage the locking nut a little, I want to just make sure it don't loosen. So I'll thread lock that on as well. So let's go ahead. I gotta cut open this grease. Okay, so this is the, let's get the sleeve in one of them. So let's kind of get a little lube. All over this. And I want enough because I want to make sure this don't squeak. Okay, so we got bench on there. The remainder that's on my finger I'll just put on the inside here. Okay, so then just kind of slip this in like so. And now it's pressed in. So this one is set, and then this other one then would get pushed in from the opposite end and slipped on there. So let's go ahead then and put a bunch of grease all around in here. And a bunch of grease all around on here. I want a lot of it because I want to make sure this don't squeak. And they gave you 2 of them, so they definitely intended for you to have a lot of grease. So I'm finishing this whole pack. And then I'll use the other one for the edges in the front. The middle section here is probably going to be doing the most rubbing, so. Get this all in there. Okay. Alright, so then that would be ready to press in on top. So before I do that, let me open the other one because I got to get grease on the outer side of it. And then we'll slip it in on the diff, and then we'll grease these washers and put those on and bolt it in. Try this again. Oh, there we go. Oop. There, basically putting it on every edge that's going to make contact with other rubber or with metal. And this is just to make sure it's not squeaking. Okay. That's greased. Let's go put it in, and then we'll put the remaining of this grease on these washers. We only got to put it on the one side that makes contact with the rubber. All right, so I went and I grabbed my red and tacky grease. This is fantastic grease, and it's waterproof as well. I'm going to just rub this on the inside there. This will help prevent it from squeaking, and it will also hopefully help me slide everything in. And then you press it in. Just like that. All right. That one is now in. And then we go and we press in the front part. You gotta kind of work it. It's gonna keep playing with me. And press that in. Make sure you push in the center to try to get that sleeve to go in. So much easier than that OEM style bushing, that's for sure. Trying to push that center piece in a bit more. But I think we got it. Once we bolt this in, this is gonna kind of slide around a little bit more too, and everything should press together. And then that'll rest in like that. Kind of reach back here and add a little bit to the back here. Kind of want it to stick, but let me go ahead and raise the jack here and start raising this up. It's a little bit more of a tighter fit. Like that. My backing just popped out. Son of a gun. Well, let me lower it and put it back in. But basically you get the gist. You raise it up and you put your bolt in. Alright, so I managed to jack this up. So this part of the bushing isn't all the way on, which is why this was a bit more snug lifting it up. But once I put the bolt through and I tighten it down, it'll push that in. So just kind of get it up and then get your hole lined up right here for the bolt to get in. So I got a little blue thread locker on there. Now I'll put it back in. And get my nut on there. All right, I got my impact. I got it on automatic so it doesn't like tighten it. It's just gonna like get it like tight without like over tightening, like without actually like torquing it down. And then I'll get my torque wrench and we'll get it to spec. And it's supposed to be 56 pound-feet. I think that's like 77 Newton meters, something like that. Don't quote me on that, but 56 pound-feet. So I got to get my 19 on the back to hold the nut. All right, let's go ahead and torque this down. And you're supposed to use your torque wrench on the nuts, not the bolt itself. So let's see if I can get down in there. Oh, I can just barely get on it, I think. Okay. I might not have the leverage. Whew. Turn, so I'm gonna have to do it the wrong way and do it off the bolt itself. Unfortunately, there is just not enough room. There, we got it. And one more for good measure. I think it's my posture, to be honest. There we go. There we go. All right. Yep. It's torqued. Now I gotta pry the wrench out. Yeah. All right, so now I'm going to reattach the shock. So I move my jack over to the hub, and I got to raise up on that. Careful not to hit the caliper or anything. So I can raise it up enough to get that to go back on. Let's see if that's high enough. I don't know. Now the bolts for your shocks are also one-time use, and I don't have a new one right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some blue thread locker on this as well, just for temporary to hold it for me. I do intend to replace my suspension because the shocks are getting wore out. So when I put new suspension on, then I'll have new fasteners as well. So right now my goal is just to get it to hold until, for the time being. So I got the blue thread locker on here. So it looks like I gotta raise it a little bit more. And I want to thread it in by hand just to make sure I don't cross thread this. Okay, I think that feels good. All right, I think that feels good. I just want to make sure I'm not going to cross thread it. Let me grab my impact, because this needs to go to 74 pound-feet. So we need this one real good and tight. All right, I went and got my other torque wrench. This one's actually brand new. This is my first time using it. I bought this one, this 1/2-inch one, for my wheels. So let's see. That's better. I actually felt myself tightening it myself. All right, now we're perfect. Over tightening, you can damage your bolts and stuff, so that's why I wanted to loosen that up. All right, we're good now. Should be set there. Let me go ahead and pull those blocks and things out from under here. Pull this out. And now the trailing arm is being supported by the shock. Bam. Now that is all down. Perfect. All right, job done for this part here. All right, everybody, so future Terri here. I'm getting ready to edit this video you guys are about to watch. And there is a disclaimer I need to mention on this for things that I did not do that you need to consider. And that is, before you tighten down your bolts on the lower bolt for the shock, as well as tightening down the bolt for the actual diff mount, make sure everything is leveled out for your suspension. Get the subframe put back up and secure that into place first. Then go ahead and tighten down your other bolts. Don't torque them yet, because you want to make sure you put the car back down so that you get the load on the wheel, and then you torque down your shock to make sure that that's good. Otherwise it might not be exactly right once you put weight on it. So I haven't done any of that stuff yet because I still plan to put new subframe bushings in. So my subframe is still down, which means the issue that I have is I already tightened down the other bolts just so I could show them to you in the video on how to tighten everything back up and finish it. But I have to actually undo those because I don't have the subframe up yet. So all of that is basically not lined up properly. And in fact, when I lowered the front of the subframe there, the diff actually shifted forward a bit. So right now, once I jacked up my differential, the new bushings are actually rubbing on part of the bracket on the front side of the diff. And it's pushing the bushing in further than it's supposed to go, which is pushing the bushing on the back, on the cover, out further. So it's because my diff is not in the right position it's supposed to be in because my subframe is tilted downward. So the diff is sliding downward. So I need to make sure before I actually finish the project, I need to go back, loosen those bolts, and put my subframe up, and then retighten everything, and then torque everything down so everything is level and properly secured. And this is something you need to do anytime you work with suspension. You got to make sure everything is leveled out and you have load on things that need it, so that way when you're tightening it, you're good. Like if you're working on suspension parts, you don't want to torque stuff down before the wheel and the car is down, because it's going to loosen back up once you put it on the ground. Things like that kind of nature. And I forgot to kind of go over that in the video, so I just want to tell you that right now as a disclaimer. Make sure you do all that first before you actually torque everything down to spec. And then my second disclaimer is I went with the Powerflex style bushing. I got the Heritage version, which gave me the gray color, and that is graded at 80A. Your OEM rubber bushings are, I think, like a 65A. So these are going to be a bit stiffer, but they're not too stiff to where they're going to cause, significant damage or anything. However, there is still concerns about, the subframe issue with the welds and things like that nature. I mean, there is a chance that my subframe, structurally could fail, even if I went with OEM bushings. So it's just one of those things you gotta live with as a Z3 owner until you're able to do the reinforcement. Now, ideally, I would do the reinforcement now while I'm in there, but I just can't afford it financially to buy the Randy Forbes kit or to get any other kind of reinforcement. There's a lot of different companies that offer different reinforcement components, and it's not within my means right now, because you have to fully remove the subframe to do all that, and you need basically a body shop that knows what they're doing. And my car isn't even in a position right now where I could even drive it to a body shop, let alone be worrying about buying that kind of stuff at this point in time. So I am aware of the issue. It's just something that I'm just gonna have to hope doesn't become an issue in the future. Outside of that, I have also done some more research on polyurethane bushings, and to learn a lot more about the different brands and quality. And I did go with Powerflex, like I said. However, I've done more research, and there are some reputable businesses that stand behind Revshift, and I've looked at theirs. They don't offer as much of a variety in bushings for the Z3 as Powerflex does. However, they do have bushings that are also 80A. They have like your track and your drifting ones as well, but I've been considering switching to Revshift. Now, I might keep the Powerflex one that I have for the diff mount, just because it's already in. So I'm gonna consider just leaving that one alone, and then doing Revshift on the rest. Since they're the same rating, both companies do 80A. It should be fine to mix and match. But overall, I'm still debating swapping out that Powerflex for a Revshift, just because the design is even different, to where they just do like a thicker one that's a solid piece that goes in one side versus two thin pieces. Looking at the different style, I could see why Powerflex would have more noise and vibration, because they have more pieces, which means more things that are going to be moving around. And I also found that Powerflex, you're supposed to go back and routinely grease them again. I really don't want to tear this stuff apart just to put grease in there. So that's another reason why I'm thinking that I might swap it out for a Revshift one, because from claims are that the Revshift ones, you only got to grease the one time and then they're good for the lifetime of that bushing. So I don't know how true or accurate that really is, but that's the word on the street. Even the manufacturers say that you don't have to grease those. So and they all have good warranties as well. Both Powerflex and Revshift have like limited warranties on those. There are other companies that have better warranties. Just unfortunately, they don't make anything for the Z3. So that's the downside of that. But I just wanted to put that out there that I am aware of the subframe issue, and I'm considering swapping out the bushing that I put in the video with Revshift instead. If anyone has any history with working with Powerflex on their car or Revshift on their car, if you want to leave comments on what your experience has been with them, with the noise and vibration and things like that, let me know. But from what I've been seeing from reviews and from companies who have done testing on these, they all say that Powerflex has more noise and vibration than Revshift, and Revshift doesn't require additional maintenance, unlike Powerflex. So to me, that sounds like Revshift is the better quality product for me to be using, for someone who doesn't want to have to keep going in there and checking on things. So I just want to put that out there. Leave comments on what you have experienced yourselves, and we'll go from there. I have time before I make my decision because I'm still got to do the subframe bushings. So, and I'm gonna go Revshift with those, and then I'll decide after that, before I put everything back together, if I want to swap out that diff mount bushing or not. So we'll see. All right, thank you guys. Let's get back to the video. All right, everybody. I finally achieved getting that differential mount bushing replaced, and that was definitely a chore. It took me longer than it should have. Now, someone with experience can get that whole process done within 2 hours. Since it was my first time and I had lots of trial and error, I spent a good 5 hours trying to get that done. But at least I got it done, and now you'll have a tutorial of the steps that I made to actually get it done, so you can actually save time. I would say just go ahead, use a Dremel, start cutting that rubber, and then drill holes in it to get all the way through, and then you can use a hacksaw to cut the rest of the way, just to get through the rubber, which isn't too bad. And then doing that triangle method with the Dremel, and then prying that up and pounding out that ring will save you a lot of time and hassle. It took me a long time to figure out how to get that out, but now that you guys have the keys to the kingdom here with the success on how to get that out, you guys should hopefully be able to do that significantly quicker than I did. So good luck with your projects. There's plenty more for me to do here on the Z3. I'm still going to continue working on the rear end of the car. I got to do the subframe bushings still, and we're going to be working on the rear sway bar as well to get that taken care of. Now, technically, the R-tab should also be done. I'm just not ready to do that right now. Actually, I do have plans to do brakes on this car, and I might save the R-tabs for when I do the brake job, just because I have to disconnect all the brake lines. It makes more sense for me to do the R-tabs with the brake job, just because I also want to do a full brake fluid flush as well, because I have old dark fluid in there. So I think I'll do the R-tabs then, because I'll have to drain the fluid out anyway and disconnect everything. So it just, this way I don't have to lose a lot of fluid and do it twice, you know, and re-bleed everything twice. So let's just bleed the brakes one time. So R-tabs will be much further down the road when I get to the brakes. So let's just go ahead and look forward to the next video, which would be the sway bar. And then we'll do subframe bushings after that. So plenty more to do. And then hopefully soon we can start putting the drive shaft and everything back in, and I can start driving this beast, because it's been, I haven't driven this thing since winter. So I put it away for the winter months, and then I've been working on it, and now it's like midsummer. It's already June, and I'm still working on it. So yeah, it's been like 6 months, a little bit more than about 6 months. Yeah, more than 6 months since I've driven this car. So I definitely want to get it back on the road. So thank you guys so much for always being here and supporting me. If you are new and you enjoyed watching this, please give the video a like as well as subscribe so you can check out any updating content I have for the BMW Z3. And you can also follow me over on Instagram at CoolCatTerri to get quick little updates on things before I get full videos posted, so you can kind of stay in the know. Thank you guys so much again for all your support, and I'll catch you all on the next video.